Hello everybody, welcome to the earliest alerts. Several things to talk about. Of course, we need to cover Harvey, and then we'll get into the long term, and even some piece of data that just came in regarding the winter outlook from the Japanese model, which may be some interesting stuff to look at there. Alright, real quick though, let's talk about today. We've had a messy morning. There's areas of rain, some fog, and it's just really caused some problems on the roadways. This batch of showers now moving in across portions of Meade County and Breckenridge counties, moving off to the east here this morning. Nothing severe again expected. We're just talking about just periods of heavy rain and in some cases some patchy fog. I just wouldn't bet on a lot of sun, period. If you get any sunshine at all, really the next couple of days, consider yourself lucky, because this is a relatively humid setup overall. So, and of course with Harvey moving in the coming days, the cloud shield's going to overpower us as well. So not exactly a pretty week, but at least it's not going to be a washout on a daily basis for everybody. Alright, here's a wider setup, and it's a very weak low pressure. It's across portions of northern areas of Indiana. It's a very weak front. We talked about this yesterday. It's more like a very fading trough that's kind of just drifting its way through here. If it were stronger, we would be talking about Harvey moving off mainly due east along I-10 on the Gulf Coast. But because this is kind of fading off the map locally, our front, that is now opening the door, if you will, for Harvey to come on up for a visit, and that's the way things are trending. Radar view still shows a lot of the heavy rain. Now, it's not as heavy in Houston as it was. A lot of heavier cores now showing up here across portions of Louisiana, far east Texas, in Louisiana, into portions of southern Mississippi. The actual center itself, you can see it as the visible satellite comes into frame as we get some daylight. It's still offshore. This is still a tropical storm, 45 mile per hour wind gust. It's not forecast to get a hurricane because it's been sitting there so long. It's taken all that cold water down below and it's pulling it up to the surface, and that kind of chokes the tropical system. So they have a limit to them on how strong they can get when they move this slow like this. But in general, it's still offshore, which means these bands will still feed inland. And as long as we can keep that moving, hopefully we can lessen the effect down the road here. Even the enhanced satellite from GO16 shows how the cloud tops, where you look with the brighter colors, that's where the heaviest of rain is falling. It looks like, again, Houston getting a bit of a break there. Let's hope that continues to be the trend. So, severe threat. That's going to be a factor as we track Harvey in the coming days. Now, today, not an issue locally, anywhere close by. Now, tomorrow, see the little hint of it there across portions of Mississippi. Then, as we into Thursday, southern Kentucky is now in the marginal risk. Doesn't include any of our counties, but it's right up against portions of Hart into Adair. And the reason for that is what we were talking about yesterday, that southeast part of the core of Harvey is going to have a natural spinning motion to it. You may not get a lot of lightning, but you can get embedded brief tornadoes that can develop. In fact, when you look at the helicity on the NAM model, this is for that marginal risk day, where you want to look for that potential is going to be basically whether it's more southeast coming into play. So as the core heads into Kentucky, it's going to be mainly this area, the southeast quadrant, most at risk for maybe an isolated tornado. Not a big deal. These are usually very weak tornadoes. They usually develop within a matter of, in some cases, seconds, if not minutes, and then they can fade away just as quickly. So these are not like the big tornadoes we think of in spring or anything like that. Very weak tornado potential there with the low. Interesting enough, though, the NAM, anyway, is just now able to see into the upcoming weekend, and it does bring in that core of Harvey right over, it looks to be very close to Dyersburg, Tennessee. That would mean that it would be this area of Kentucky that would be most at risk for an isolated tornado. And that may clip, say, Adair County, Washington, Marion. You guys may be in that zone. So we'll worry about that later. But just want to at least point that out in case you're wondering why the SPC has these outlooks coming out. It's a very common thing to put them out as a safety precaution. And I've seen many, many times that they are issued and no tornado warnings ever take place. So not a big deal. The reason why Harvey is going to be a pain for the weekend on its path is because of high pressure on either side of it. We've got one. Here's your, by the way, these are the models and the ensembles. There's GFS, Euro, and the Canadian. The peak area of the highs, basically. So you got a high to the west, get the high to the east, the Bermuda high. And you see that on every model. The difference that you're noticing here, especially in the operational models, is the intensity of the Bermuda high. GFS is not as aggressive with it, therefore it takes its sweet time bringing Harvey in here. Actually arrives pretty late Friday into Saturday. The Euro a little bit stronger with it, but it does kind of do a squeeze play, pushes it into the area a little quicker into the Ohio Valley as we head into Friday and Saturday. The Canadian model, very, very similar idea. Now, ensembles are not as aggressive with that Bermuda High Ridge to the east, but that is going to be a key factor here for this weekend. Because, yes, we have a strong cold front moving in as well that'll arrive just after Labor Day. That's still in play. The problem is the squeeze play action between these two highs for Friday and Saturday. How is that going to direct the remnants of Harvey, and how quickly is it going to push it through the area? Because rainfall is going to be a big problem with it as we head into time. In fact, the Weather Prediction Center is indicating, 9 to 10 inches of rain moving into Arkansas, and then portions of western Tennessee approaching about 7 to as much as 8 inches of rain. But notice there's a turn to it to the right, and that's the reason for that is that they're also trying to figure out how is the remnants going to squeeze in between the high to the east, the high to the west, and here comes the cold front that's going to be approaching after Labor Day. So there's 3 different things happening at one time, and that's going to cause the models to flip like crazy. So I won't get too worked up on the rain totals just yet. Just know that is the key factor that we have to examine. It's just too early yet to nail that down. Too many players in the field and way too early before the game gets going. We haven't gotten the tailgating yet. And when you look at the rain total forecast, this was the GFS forecast for this weekend for the remnants of Harvey. This past weekend, this is what it had. Not very impressive. Now, this morning, it's obviously caught on, the idea of bringing all that moisture in, so it finally jumped on board. All the other models were way ahead of the game on that one. GFS was slow to the game. Then after we get past that, Labor Day at this point still looks good, as long as we can at least push the remnants out of here on Sunday and make Sunday our transition day, if you will. Then that will bode well for Labor Day. In fact, if we clear out earlier than expected on Sunday, we may be in the 85 to 90 degree range as we head into Labor Day. So we may have to raise the numbers back up again. We'll see how that plays out. But then we have that stronger front that moves in just after Labor Day, that it's going to be a fall front. Temperatures in the daytime hours, I think a lot of you will struggle out to 60 at some point next week. Here in Louisville, we may get to around 70, but lows at night in the 40s, I think, are still on the table there. And when you look at the new long-range Euro that just came out all the way through October, what we're looking for here is anywhere like the NAO, anywhere where it goes negative. Let me change my wand so you can see what I'm referring to here. Anytime where it goes negative, that's where you see a good sign for a cooler air to move in. For the Arctic Oscillation, same thing. Anytime you see a negative push, cooler air, you guys should remember this from last winter. EPL, negative, PNA, it's the opposite. It's positive. So right there is our cool shot of air just after Labor Day. And then as we head toward mid-September, notice there's a slight little bump there in a positive range in the PNA. The EPL does certainly go negative. Arctic Oscillation kind of iffy, but the NAO goes negative. So there's another cool shot that may develop in mid-September. And then as we get into October, we certainly are seeing some decent signals of some cool shots of air for October. And we'll just have to see how that plays out as we get closer in time. Real quick, I told you guys I'll talk about a winter forecast in the Japanese model. This is the water temperature forecast for the winter. This is way different than what we've had past several years. It's showing warm or cool waters off the Pacific Ocean in California. It's been warm several years now. The end result then would be for a reversal, a warmer than average winter locally, colder than average for the Rockies. I wouldn't get too worked up about that if you're a snow lover, because we are facing what looks to be a neutral year when it comes to the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean especially. We're not talking about an El Nino or a La Nina. I think we're looking at a neutral idea. So whenever you get neutral, you're going to get these wild winter outlooks as we head into this upcoming season. So we got plenty of time to talk about that, so hang tight.